Welcome back to r/Neighbors from Hell, where people share stories about their crazy neighbors. And if you are new to my channel, please don't forget to subscribe to join our amazing community. And without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one is titled, Neighbor Cuts My Flowers with a Little Justice Served. I have a very bored neighbor who has never worked a day in his life who seems to hate my gardening. I live in DC with attached homes and fences and have been gardening for about 9 years, which is also about how long my neighbor has lived next door. I also should mention that their yard is completely concrete with an empty flower bed filled with rocks, and mine has a variety of tall growing dahlias. And guys, please correct me if I pronounced that incorrectly. If you don't know anything about dahlias, they are a tall growing flower about 3 to 4 feet with bamboo-like stalks, and I have them all on stakes to keep them from breaking from the wind. Add 2 maple trees and a pretty bird bath, and that is my yard. After 9 years, my neighbor thought he should buy something too, and out comes not 1 but 3 bird feeders. As he puts the bird feeders out, he grabs his phone, lines it up with the fence, decides they are leaning an inch too far on his side, and snips 2 of my best dahlias from the top. I have it all recorded and wait to confront him. I go outside and water my flowers, take a picture of the snipped flowers and catch him outside a few minutes later before I can say, "Excuse me, can I speak to you?" He hightails it back into the house. I wait a few minutes and hear a tap on his window and see 2 signs I guess he bought from Amazon that says,
"No one cares," and "Keep calm and mind your own business."
All I could do is laugh. What a wimp. So now I am stuck with a yard of birds, with my flowers being broken from the weight of birds using them as perches, and bird crap. I have tried reflective tape, scare tape, reflective mirrors and other things, but it doesn't work for all birds. I should also add that filling 3 bird feeders are part of his daily routine now. And you know guys, speaking of birds, today something happened to me that never happened to me before. I was at a red light on my motorcycle, and right as I was about to ride off, a bird crapped on me from above. I'm not sure if that is bad luck or something, but fortunately nothing happened and I drove home safely. Update to the flower cutting neighbor story. I have posted here before about a neighbor who feeds the neighborhood cats and has cut my flowers 3 times in the past, and I finally waited for the last straw yesterday when I watched him cut my flowers and went back in the house. I told him that I was calling the police and he said go ahead since you threw cat feces on my porch. I didn't know what the hell he was talking about, but I thought it was something he was going to use against me. Fast forward to the police being here and I give my statement and he gives his with a bunch of BS. Especially with threats added onto it, as he tried to turn it into a hate crime and honestly thought that not telling the police he fed the cats himself would help him. After the police left, literally an hour later, another cop comes and says that my neighbor is filing a harassment lawsuit and wants to know why he is having cat feces around his yard and talks about it being a sanitation issue. I opened my back door and pointed right to the cat bowls strewed around the backyard and my deterrent that consists of Tabasco paprika and orange oil, and the cop just stands there. They go back to the neighbor for literally 5 minutes and leave. Fast forward again to today, where I am outside fixing my flowers to make sure that they are nowhere near my neighbor. A cop pulls up again, knocks on random doors around the neighborhood for people who do have cameras, and finally comes and talks to me once again about the neighbor filing for a hate crime. He speaks about how he's trying to find out whether I picked up feces and threw it on his porch. I ask him what time was this found, and he says yesterday at the same time that my neighbor had cut my flowers. The weird thing about it is that my neighbor has a camera that points right to where the feces was found, and the cop says all he has is a photo. It is almost like the camera doesn't work, but I have my own cameras that work for him. Long story short, through all my cameras, who would have thought feeding cats a mixture of wet foods, dry foods, and who knows what else would give them uncontrollable diarrhea and make them puke, and I have all the footage to cover that. Gosh, who wouldn't love a neighbor like that who is filing charges for a supposed hate crime against you? Honestly guys, to me it seems that neighbor is an absolute maniac. And by the way guys, if you have watched until here, I would really appreciate it if you could like the video, since that could help my channel tremendously. Thank you so much in advance, and now let's move on to the next update to the story. Flower cutting neighbors are plain stupid part 2. I have been on here twice before about neighbors that I knew well that I've lived next to for about 10 years, but have recently changed for whatever reason. I will keep my recap short. We live in DC with close-knit row houses. I've been gardening most of my life and mostly grow dahlias, 3 to 4 feet tall growing flowers, and a lot of other things with no issues from my neighbor. I also added a bird bath this year. My neighbors, who are married men that I've known for a while, that I've cat-sitted for and knew very well, had changed all of a sudden 2 years ago and have been torturing me ever since. My issues with them are that they feed the alley cats along with 3 other neighbors, but never bring in the bowls, which brings raccoons, possums and anything else that wants to eat. The yard is fully concreted, so whatever excrement or urine from the cats will always come in my yard after they are done eating. One neighbor works, the other has never worked a day in his life. Throw in a recently adopted 1-year-old girl and that is my neighbor's. Recently the neighbor that never works has taken it upon himself to want to decorate his yard by adding 3 bird feeders. Along with my bird bath and a 3 bird feeders, my flowers were partially destroyed from the birds who used them as perches. I used reflective mirrors and tape, which deterred them for a while but not long. For every little thing that wanted to decorate my yard and make it look nice, my neighbor bought the same thing. I had a Black Lives Matter flag, he bought the same flag. I bought some nice lights for the yard. He bought also some nice lights for the yard, the exact same thing. I honestly wish that all this money being spent to decorate the yard will be spent on something for the child, but it seems like my neighbor just tries to one-up me. I have cameras all along all the sides of my house watching my garden, and 2 times I have caught my neighbor cutting my flowers, and his reasoning was that they were 1.5 inches too far on his side. My flowers are staked and usually blow over in the wind or by the birds using them, and the last straw was when he cut it again. I called the police and he stated that the reason he cut them this time is because he found cat feces on his porch. He didn't know that I created a concoction of orange oil, cayenne pepper and Tabasco that keeps the cats away, and of course they are using the bathroom back to where they came from. So of course my neighbor thinks I am throwing feces across the fence into his yard, and not that the cats have used the bathroom over there themselves, and what my camera caught was a sick cat that probably ate too much random food that couldn't hold it. Fast forward, the police came, got both of our statements along with the neighbor randomly throwing in that I have threatened him with a gun for cutting flowers. After calling the police, I got to ring on the doorbell with another set of police that the neighbor called back on me. Confused, I told the police the same thing, but he failed to say that he fed the cats himself this time. Idiot. I got a ring on my doorbell a 3rd time, and this time another police officer stated he was a specialist for harassment or something and said that I was harassing the neighbor. Once again, I told him everything he needed to know, along with everything I have recorded for the past 2 years on my cameras, along with the cat bowls outside, and the police officer got quiet. Fast forward to now, with the neighbors still thinking of ways to pester and still thinks I'm throwing cat crap over their fence. Geek Squad came knocking on their door and added 2 Ring cameras with the floodlights, which are pointed straight at my porch as soon as I walk out the door. It is not even pointed anywhere that would be for their safety, it is pointed right at me. Of course, looking it up, it is legal, which I'm surprised, but is it really legal to have a camera pointed opposite to the house it should be watching? For everything that my neighbor has done, I found a way to deter it, but I guess he goes to his drawing board and tries new ways to pester. Honestly, I'm surprised he has such a budget, but I know that he's extremely bored even with the kid. So my new way to deter that is a privacy shade. I wonder what is next. And Ripe Stars, I'm curious, do you have any neighbors who seemingly have too much time on their hands and enjoy using their free time to annoy other people in the neighborhood? Let us know about your neighbors in the comments. Next update to the flower cutting neighbor. My neighbor, who has been after me because he is bored as hell, had the Geek Squad install a ring floodlight pointed directly at my house that switches on every time a car goes by. Good thing Halloween is around the corner, so I brought some of that stretchy cotton-like spiderweb and stretched it enough to block the camera and added some bird reflecting mirrors along with a strip of reflective roll and bounced that light right back. Talk about a waste of $200 and a camera that looks at nothing, and you get some extra light on your house now. The icing on the cake is even added a banner that says scary that points at their direction since they will be looking in a mirror. Be right back, I'm gonna work on my evil laughter. Next one, mailbox drama. Hi all, I don't know if this qualifies as Neighbors from Hell, but it was sure annoying. I live at the end of a cul-de-sac, so my frontage is less than 40 feet. I have about 5 feet of space for my trash and then my double drive, then a couple feet where my mailbox is, and then 3 feet to the light pole that is the property line divider. My next door neighbor was a single mom with boys, no issue, so was I. Mine is grown though. Then my neighbor placed a basketball hoop and base in the 3-foot space between my mailbox and the light pole on my property. It became the neighborhood hangout. Within a week my mailbox was dented. I took a picture, another week and I came home and it was knocked over. I took a picture. I asked her and her kids to try to be more careful. I got some quickcrete and re-cemented it. Weeks later it is on the ground again. I asked her and her kids to try to be more careful. I once again took a picture and I re-cemented it again. Within a week it is on the ground and tossed back into my yard, because it must have been in the way or something. So I took a picture, re-cemented it again and asked them to move the hoop. She said it is not her kids, it is the neighborhood kids and she cannot do anything about it. During this wonderful period, we each had met our SOs, who get along well by the way. Now I was also dealing with noise from them. They planted rose bushes on my side of the property line and I've had to return their dogs to them multiple times and just tossed their dog poo back into their yard. The end of the standoff came when they didn't just knock over the mailbox and post, they broke the post. The wood was splintered and not salvageable. I took a picture, I asked them to replace it. She was all apologetic at first and then an hour later showed up at my door and said her new husband said it was not their fault because it was the neighborhood kids. Oh really? I started looking at fences. My backyard is completely enclosed with a 6-foot privacy fence, so I was looking for something to tie into that and go to the curb, no sidewalks. Before I built the fence, I wanted an accurate survey, so my SO made some calls. Turned out the best surveyor in town was the same guy that laid out our subdivision 30 years ago. He pulled all his old notes and was able to quickly find the markers and mark the property line. Meanwhile, the neighbor watched from her porch. They got the point, especially when my SO and I tipped over their basketball hoop of our property and into the cul-de-sac and then dragged it over to partially block their driveway. We never did build the fence. They moved the hoop to the other side of their driveway and replaced my mailbox post. Her SO did ask that we would notify them before building a fence so they could move the rose bushes. And we said okay, so they are still there and we all studiously ignore each other. And the last one is not really about entitled crazy neighbors, but instead it is a little bonus story from the beloved Captain Dropbear on our own subreddit r/ripe stories. It is titled, I must be a magnet for crazies or it is just full moon time again. So, a big cast of players today, me, your lovable Captain Dropbear, well maybe only to Mrs. Dropbear, my new apprentice, let's call him Private Platypus, 75-year-old customer who could be your favorite gran, let's call her Betty White, as everyone loves her, and sign writers Bill and Ben. And of course our villain of the story, the painter who was like Norman Stansfield, see the movie Leon the Professional, great movie by the way. Well, as you can guess, fellow Ripe fans, I've had an interesting day at work. I now have a new apprentice to train. I have dubbed him Private Platypus. So, only the one job today, 8 shower screens in an ex-backpackers hostel, good for training. We load up 2 trucks as unknown sizes, so we take extra screens to be safe and head to meet our little old lady of a customer, Betty White. I walk through with Betty on what she would like done, promise all will be completed by the end of the day, and all the time she is getting texts and calls from the painter every 5 minutes. Norman, the painter, then turns up 45 minutes later and starts verbally abusing her about us being there. Betty asking why he was not finished 2 weeks ago like he promised. She needs rubbish he has left everywhere cleaned up. For example, half-used paint cans with the lids off and brushes left in them, roller trays full of paint and rollers still on them. And she had informed him on writing that we were coming today. He just got more and more abusive. So, as any good drop bear would do, I stepped in, said, "Mate, calm down and leave. You are threatening and harassing the customer. She is frightened. Walk away, go calm down and come back in 30 minutes. You are a site safety hazard. Leave the site." Think Cujo foaming rabbit mouth behavior. So he tells me to leave his side, grabs my arm and tries to drag me out of the building. Internally screaming in my head, "Stop touching me!" I was a very good drop bear as I didn't want to scare Private Platypus on his first week or Betty. I, walking out to the front door, said, "After you, sir," and promptly closed the door on his backside, as after he walked out. And I continued talking to Betty, asking if she was okay. Did she want me to call the police? No, she just wanted the job finished. Sorry about my behavior. No, thank you for that. Explained I had an apprentice and I will be checking his work. 50 minutes later, knocking on the door, I think it is Norman back again, shout through the door, "You calm now, mate? If not, go for another walk." It is Bill and Ben, your flower pot men from ABC Signwriters, were here to see Betty. I open the door, say, "Sorry, I thought you were..." Oh crap, here comes Norman, the painter. I ask Betty, "Do you want me to stay with you while we talk to the signwriters because of Norman?" She says no, she will be fine with them, and so I just start loading in with Platypus to start work. The entire time I hear Norman continue to abuse Betty and the Bill and Ben tell him to go away in not so polite terms. Bugger off. Norman leaves, Bill and Ben walk Betty to her car and she leaves to go pick up her husband from the hospital as he just had surgery for cancer. Norman returns, starts cleaning up, no longer foaming at mouth, but still carrying on like a pork chop, another name for a person acting silly or stupid. If he is not paid, he will burn down the building or trash the place and use spray cans to graffiti the place. Me and Platypus just look at each other and I tell him to work at the other end of the building. I will check on him. Norman is still running his mouth at me, calling me a chicken. I kindly inform Norman that I am an MMA instructor, so don't go there. Go work in another part of the building. Mind you, I am 3 times this idiot's size, so he actually complied. Betty returns in the afternoon to check how we are going. Norman starts up again, no scaring Betty and Platypus. But this time it got physical, screaming from Betty. Both me, Platypus, Bill and Ben race down the stairs and inside. The fudge knuckle threw paint over Betty. Oh heck no. Drop bear not going no more. Norman wants to play drop bear happy to take out the trash, just like Jazz from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Norman is defenestrated from the building. Real shame the window was open and we were not on the first floor. We all check on Betty, clean her up and she still does not want to call the police. No Betty, let me call the police. Betty just wants him to finish and leave. We all walk Betty back to her car. Norman has disappeared. We finish out the day and job, call Betty to make sure she's okay and let her know that I waited until Bill and Ben finished their job and we all left together. I have written an accident report for my boss about Norman and will get the office to forward her copy. Wish her husband a swift recovery and hope she's okay. If I hear anything, you all know I will update. And yes, I did tell Betty about his threats to burn and trash the place. And finally, big sister Mama-san, I finally got to defenestrate someone. It only took 50 years. I get to take another thing off my bucket list. And I gotta say, Captain Dropbear is really one hell of a worker because he certainly does more than he is getting paid for. I just love hearing about this guy literally taking out the trash, in this case Norman. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.